Shalakaya Chakshurunnalikam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachanam pangam langyate girim yad kripatamaham vande Shri Gurudena taranam Paramanandam madhavam. So we'll resume our discussion from the fifth chapter, fifth canto, chapter 2. And if you give me 1 minute, let me get to the relevant document. Okay, so we are resuming from the 10th verse of the second chapter. So this chapter is the activities of Maharaj Agnidhar, who's the eldest son of Maharaj Priyavrata. And we see here essentially the background is that Maharaj Agnidhar desiring to be elevated to the Pitralok. That was his ultimate goal. And in order to be elevated to Pitralok, he wanted to have a qualified son. And in order to have a qualified son, he first needs to have a qualified wife. So with that desire in mind, he goes to perform austerities, specifically at a place that is frequented by the heavenly damsels. And Lord Brahma, seeing his austerities, sends an Apsara by the name of Purvachitti. So when Agnidhar hears the sounds of the ankle bells of Purvachitti, he quickly opens his eyes, and for a moment he is confused that this is a place that is free. He confuses her initially for a brahmachari performing austerities, and then when he realizes that she is in fact a woman suitable to be his wife, then we see that he is in a very subtle way, he continues to flatter her more and more. So from verse 10. Vacham param charana panjate krenama brahmana rupa mukhrama shravana matu piyam labdakadamba ruchi ankavitam kabimbe yasyamala tapardi vachava kalam te. Prem Kishore Prabhu, you want to read?
Yeah, Prabhu. I can simply, O Brahmana.
You're on mute, Prabhu.
Am I mute? I'm not mute.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
We can hear you, Prabhu.
Maybe your speaker is muted, Prabhu.
Okay, no worries. That doesn't look like it's working.
Yeah.
That's okay. I can go ahead and read.
O Brahmana, I can you can hear Prabhu or not? Bhairi
O
Prabhu?
Brahman, I can simply hear the tinkling of your ankle bells. Within those bells, three birds seem to be chirping among themselves. Although I do not see their forms, I can hear how they are chirping. When I look at your beautiful circular hips, I see that they are the lovely color of kadamba flowers, and your waist is encircled by a belt of burning cinders. Indeed, you seem to have forgotten to dress yourself. So, even though we see that Maharaj Agnidhar is addressing her as a Brahman, he is also fully cognizant of her bodily features. Right? And later on, he becomes more and more explicit in his description of her bodily features. So Srila Prabhupada says that this is the nature of lust, that it attracts the person to the physical features of the opposite sex. Because Agnidhar is infatuated, he's looking at the objects of his lust. Right? So he's looking at her at her circular hips, he's looking at her waist. Then he says that you seem to have forgotten to dress yourself. And Prabhupada says that this also indicates his lusty desire of seeing her without any garments. So in his mind, he's already moved beyond what the reality is. So in his mind, he is already seeing her without clothes, and in his confusion, he is expressing that also. So Prabhupada says that she was fully dressed, but Agnidhar had become so lusty that he asked, "Why have you come naked?" So that was the manifestation of lust in him. Okay, verse 11. Kim sambratam ruchiyer dvicha shranago yaste madhikrisho vahasi yatra drishi shrihitame pankurunaha surabira mavishanidra yena shramam subhag me surabhi karoshi. Agnidhar then praised Purvachitti's raised breasts. He said, "My dear Brahman, your waist is very thin, yet with great difficulty you are carefully carrying two horns, to which my eyes have become attracted. What is filling those two beautiful horns? You seem to have spread fragrant red powder upon them, powder that is like the rising morning sun. O most fortunate one, I beg to inquire where you have gotten this fragrant powder that is perfuming my ashram, my place of residence." So Maharaj Agnidhar, he first paid attention to her eyes. In her eyes, when he saw that she was welcoming, then he began to examine her body. So he first notices her feet, the anklets on the feet. Then he notices her hips, then her waist, and now her breasts. So since he is still bewildered by lust, he's not fully cognizant that Purvachitti is actually a woman and not a man. So this indicates that the impact of feminine charm is so strong that it can bewilder a person even before he's fully aware. So, uh, uh, for devotees who are practicing, one of the injunctions is not to associate closely with the opposite sex. And for sannyasis, the injunction is even more strict. Srila Prabhupada was very particular of not being alone in a room with a woman, even with his own sister. He would make sure that somebody else was there in the room. And he was an old man in the 70s, very much in control of his senses, and with his sister. But then also he followed the decorum of the ashram. So sometimes, and this is mostly men, sometimes men think that, yes, I have things in control, I'm chanting, I do deity worship, and I've read enough philosophy to understand what is right and what is wrong. And I believe it's Bhakti Vikas Maharaj who say that they then flirt with Maya. And the impact is so subtle that even before realizing it, begins to draw a person in. And by the time they're fully aware of it, it is often too late. So we also see this in the material world, especially in the field of advertisements. That they may be selling like a screwdriver or a wrench, but they will have a woman holding it. So the number of billboards, the number of advertising regardless of where it is being used, whether it is used for household supplies, whether it is used for auto or for repair, but then they will have that sense that either there'll be a pretty woman holding it or there'll be a man and a woman, because the impact is subtle. It attracts the attention of the person. And we see this happening in the case of Agnidhara, that he is still not fully aware that Purva Chitti is a woman, but is already becoming bewildered by her presence. Right? So he talks about the fragrant red powder. So this is the kumkum powder that heavenly damsels they spread on the chest, and he's very much attracted to it. It is like the rising morning sun, and it is very, very fragrant. So Prabhupada comments that Agnidhar, appreciating Purva Chitti's raised breasts, after seeing the girl's breast, he almost became mad. Nevertheless, he could not recognize whether Purva Chitti was a boy or a girl, but as a result of his austerity, he saw no distinction between the two. So we see a very interesting situation over here, that he was performing austerities. He was purified. And he was in control to the sense that he was not making distinction between a male body and a female body. But even then, he is getting bewildered by the presence of a beautiful woman in his ashram. Right? So that's why he is addressing Purva Chitti as Dvija, O Brahman. Right? And then he's confused that you're a Brahman, but you look a little different. You have a thin waist and you're wearing nupur, etc., etc. So the confusion in the mind of Agnidhar, as we see in the later verses, will gradually get dissipated, and then the underlying desires will crystallize. That yes, he wants to accept Purva Chitti as a wife. he wants to enjoy with her conjugally. So that gets to be later on. Here we are seeing the influence of it. The influence is subtle because Agnidhar himself does not recognize it, but it is nevertheless there. So we see something similar in the case of, in Mahabharata, there is a pastime of Rishi Shringa, where he was living deep in the forest and never seen a woman. And then King Romapad, who lives in Angadesh, and because of the curse of the Brahman, he had a drought. So he's told that if Rishi Shringa comes to your kingdom, then you will have rain. So the ministers of King Romapad, they designed this floating, it's like a raft, a pleasure house, and they take the most beautiful quotations on there. And when Rishi Shringa first sees them, he's very confused because he's never seen a woman. So his description is actually not very different from Agnidhara's description. It's a little less lusty, but he's confused about their anatomy, but at the same time he's very attracted to them. And his father Ribandak is not there, so he enjoys spending time with them. And then of course he goes along with them to Angadesh and eventually marries Shanta, the adopted daughter of King Romapad. So there's more innocence in his case because he was in a way lured into it. Maharaj Agnidhar he had started doing it more purposefully. So he already had those desires in his heart, and given the proper environment, now they are being manifest. Okay, verse 12. Lokam pradarshaya suhurtam tavakam me yatratya hitam urashaya vavakurvam asmadvedasya manaunnyanao bibarti bhabadutam sarasa rasaswahadivaktare. Oh, my best friend, will you kindly show me the place where you reside? I cannot imagine how the residents of that place have gotten such wonderful, beautiful bodily features as your raised breasts, which agitate the mind and the eye of a person like me who sees them. Judging by the sweet speech and kind smiles of those residents, I think that their mouths must contain nectar. So Prabhupada says that still bewildered, Agnidhar wants to see the place from which the Brahmana boy had come, where the men had such raised breasts. Such attractive features, he thought, must be due to the severe austerities performed by him. Agnidhar addresses the girl as Suhurtama, the best friend, so that she would not refuse to take him there. Not only was Agnidhar captivated by the girl's raised breast, he also was attracted by her sweet speech. Nectar seemed to emanate from her mouth, and therefore he was increasingly surprised. So while there is no verse that shows what Purva Chitti speaks, but the understanding is that there is some conversation that is also happening, which is not, for the sake of conciseness, is not expressed here. So that's why he says, judging by your sweet speech. Okay. Verse 13. Kavatma vriti radanath verangavati Vishnu kalashya animishon makarau chakarnam udvignamina yugalam dvijya pankati sochi asan bringa nikaram sarayin mukhamte. My dear friend, what do you eat to maintain your body? Because you're chewing betel, a pleasing scent is emanating from your mouth. This proves that you always eat the remnants of food offered to Vishnu. Indeed, you must be an expansion of Lord Vishnu's body. Your face is as beautiful as a pleasing lake. Your jeweled earrings resemble two brilliant sharks with unblinking eyes like those of Vishnu. And your own eyes resemble two restless fish. Simultaneously, therefore, two sharks and two restless fish are swimming in the lake of your face. Besides them, the white rows of your teeth seemed like rows of very beautiful swans in the water. And your scattered hair resembles swarms of bumblebee following the beauty of your face. So we see that Maharaj Agnidhar is an expert in the art of flattery. So as he is continuing to go up in describing the beauty of Purvachitti from her feet and then her hips and waist, and now he's at the face, and he's giving special attention to the face because the beauty is reflected most in the face. So he uses very nice metaphors to glorify the beauty of Purvachitti. Right? He says that you're eating the remnants of food offered to Vishnu. You're an expansion of Lord Vishnu. Right? So he's glorifying her. That you seem to be an associate of Lord Vishnu. And then he describes the face using the metaphor that your face is like a lake, and the earrings are like sharks, and the eyes are like fishes, and they're swimming in the lake of your face. And the teeth are like beautiful swans. Right? So he's describing a lake in which there is a shark and a fish and a swan, and there is bumblebees. So describing a very pretty picture. And now we also see that more and more of his senses are opening up to Purvachitti. Right? Initially, he was just hearing her, then he was seeing her. Now he's smelling her also. Right? He says that your pleasing scent is emanating from your mouth. Because ultimately, because his mind is completely absorbed, so where the mind goes, the senses also are followed. So one by one, all the senses are following his infatuation. Okay, verse 14. Yoso tvaya kara sarojataha patango Dikshu Brahman Brahmate Jate Kshanimi Muktam Nate Samrasi Vakrajata Varutam Kashto Nilohariti Lampa Veshanivim. My mind is already restless, and by playing with the ball, moving it all around with your lotus-like palm, you're also agitating my eyes. Your curling black hair is now scattered, but you're not attentive to arranging them. Are you not going to arrange it? Like a man attached to a woman, the most cunning wind is trying to take off your lower garment. Are you not mindful of it? So by now, Agnidhar has given up all pretense of, well, not really pretense. Initially, he was confused whether she was a brahmachari or a woman. Now he's anchored in the fact that standing before him is an extraordinarily beautiful woman, and he's completely infatuated by her. And so he's now accepting that my mind is already restless, and by playing with the ball, you're also agitating my eyes. Why are the eyes getting agitated? And it's a little bit of, what's the right word? There's a fair bit of sexual innuendo going on in this, but it's in the Bhagavatam, and it's there for a purpose. We see this also in the pastime of Mohini Murti. That when Lord Shiva, he insisted on seeing Lord, because he hadn't seen the Mohini form of Lord Vishnu. So when he heard about it, then he started praying to Lord Vishnu, that show me your Mohini. And when Lord Vishnu appeared as Mohini, and there also there is a pretty graphic description of the beauty of the Lord, and also the fact that she's playing with a ball. And as she's playing with the ball, various parts of her body are also moving, and which ultimately agitates Lord Shiva. So same thing is happening over here also. That as Purvachitti is playing with the ball, her various body parts are moving. So that's why he says that now my eyes are also being agitated, because they're trying to keep up with all that is infatuating the king, right? And then he says that the wind is trying to take off a lower garment, and are you not mindful of it, right? So ultimately, what it means that he's mindful of it. That one's mind goes to where one desire is. So he's mindful of the fact that the wind is trying to take off the lower garment. He is desirous of doing it. So his attention is over there. So Srila Prabhupada says that because of her movements, her hair are loose and the belt holding her cloth was giving away, as if the cunning wind was trying to make her naked. Yet she paid no attention to arranging her hair or fixing her dress. As Agnidhar tried to see the girl's naked beauty, his eyes were very agitated by her movements. Okay, verse 15. Rupam tapodham tapascharatam tapognam ayeta tukena tapasa bhavato palabdam charutum taporasi maya sahamitramayam kimva prasidati savaya bhavavanomi. O best among those performing austerities, where did you get this wonderful beauty that dismantles the austerities performed by others? Where have you learned this art? What austerity have you undergone to achieve this beauty, my dear friend? I desire that you join me to perform austerity and penance. For it may be that the creator of the universe, Lord Brahma, being pleased with me, has sent you to be my wife. So he is coming more and more to the mature form of the reality. Right? Initially, he was bewildered by her beauty. Then he could understand that she's actually an extremely beautiful woman, and he becomes infatuated by her. He is trying to flatter her by using poetic words, beautiful metaphors. He continues to glorify her. That where did you get this wonderful beauty? And he says, best among us performing austerities. And Prabhupada mentions that this is not a superficial glorification, because beauty is actually the result of performing austerities, because it is one of the 6 opulences. Okay, we say that Krishna is complete in the 6 opulences, like wealth and power and renunciation and strength. Beauty, Shri is one of them. Of course, Krishna has them completely, but others, they get it because of the result of past austerities. Right? So Maharaj Agnidhar is recognizing the fact that her extraordinary beauty could only be the result of performing past austerities. And because he was sitting there worshipping Lord Brahma to get a suitable wife, he is also now making this connection that perhaps she has been sent by Brahma to become his become his wife. So he asked Purvachitti so that together they can perform austerities and penances and family life. And so in every varna, the nature of austerity and penances are different. And so far, as a brahmachari, he was performing certain kinds of austerities. And now he wants to have Purvachitti by his side so that together they can perform the relevant austerities and penances of a household life. Srila Prabhupada also notes that without spiritual understanding, husband and wife cannot be equally situated. Lord Brahma, the creator of the universe, is interested in good progeny. Therefore, unless he is pleased, one cannot get a suitable wife. In fact, Lord Brahma is worshipped in marriage ceremonies. In India, even today, wedding invitations are still issued with the picture of Lord Brahma on the face of the card. And when I was reading this, I was a little surprised because I haven't ever seen, at least in the north. Generally, the wedding invitations have either Lord Ganesh or they have Gauri Shankar there. But this may be prevalent at the earlier time when Lord Brahma would grace the cards of when people were probably more spiritually connected. Okay. Moving on to verse 16. Natvam tvajami dayatam dujadevadatam yasmin manodrag apino navya vyatilagnam Amchal Shringya Rasine Tumanuvartatam Te Chitam Yata Prati Sharantu Shiva Sachivya. Lord Brahma, who is worshipped by the Brahmins, has very mercifully given you to me. And that is why I have met you. I do not want to give up your company. For my mind and eyes are fixed upon you and cannot be drawn away. Oh, woman with beautiful raised breasts, I am your follower. You may take me wherever you like, and your friends may also follow me. So Prabhupada says, now Agnidhar frankly admits his weakness. He was attracted to Purvachitti, and therefore, before she could say, I have no business with you, he expresses his desire to be united with her. So this is one of the subtle psychology at play over here. It is said that in courtship, the interest of a woman is only manifested after the man shows interest. There is a difference that men by nature, they're interested or they're more liberal in their interest. In women are not, but they reciprocate. If they see that there's a man who is more and more sincerely interested in her, then they will begin to reciprocate. So Srila Prabhupada comments on that the king, he was describing her physical beauty so far, and that might flatter a woman, but it does not really, it's not really conducive to building long-term relationships. So Prabhupada says that she could say that I have no business with you. There are so many men who are describing my beauty. I have no business with them, so I have no business with you. So he quickly then says that I am attracted to you. I am ready to go anywhere, hell or heaven, in your company. Not only you, but also your friends. I want you to be my wife. So Maharaj Agnidhar does that to also invoke the corresponding interest in Purvachitti. Right? So, and Prabhupada also mentions that when one is absorbed in lust and the influence of sex, one surrenders to the feet of a woman without reservations. Srila Madhvacharya remarks in this connection that when one engaged in joking and talking like a crazy person, one may say anything and everything, but these words will be meaningless. So actually, even according to Dharma Shastra, that when what a man says when he is infatuated with a woman should not be taken literally. Even the man should not be held. Even if he's speaking lies, it should not be considered to be a sin because of the fact that the men may get bewildered and speak without proper thinking, or because they speak in this way in order to further their relationships. Now, in case of Purvachit, in case of Maharaj Agnidhar, Purvachit is actually very attractive. So he's frankly been appreciating her, and of course he's using poetry to extend the appreciation by calling her an associate of Lord Vishnu and having a performer of great austerities. So he's also extending that to flattery in order to attract her. But the real attraction comes when he's expressing his sincere interest in marrying her, in staying fixed in her company. So because Agnidhar had explicitly come for the purpose of getting a wife, he is now making the statements. Okay. So verse 17. So this is a prose verse. I won't say that. I'll just read the translation. Sukdev Goswami continued. Maharaj Agnidhar, whose intelligence was like that of a demigod, knew the art of flattering women to win them to his side. He therefore pleased that celestial girl with his lusty words and gained her favor. So after this, there is not much description of the courtship of Maharaj Agnidhar and Purvachiti. Sukadev Goswami kind of summarizes it. So one can assume that he was able to convince Purvachiti to marry him. She does marry him. They enter Grahastha ashram. And then the rest of the verses are going to talk about the family life of Maharaj Agnidhar, his descendants, and his final destination. Srila Prabhupada has a very interesting purport to this verse, which to me it talks more about the magnanimity of Prabhupada. So Prabhupada writes that since Agnidhar was a devotee, he actually had no attraction for material enjoyment. But because he wanted a wife or progeny, and Lord Brahma had sent Purvachiti for this purpose, he expertly pleased her with flattering words. Women are attracted by a man's flattering words. One who is expert in the art of flattery is known as Vidagdha. Now, Vishwanath Chakravarti, when he comments on this verse, he says something almost opposite. He says that Maharaj Agnidhar words were like that of a materialist who was very clever. And one way to reconcile it is that Maharaj Agnidhar, the fact that he is there in the Bhagavatam, the fact that his descendants would be great devotees, the fact that he is descending from a great devotee, so there is compelling evidence that he himself was an advanced devotee. So Prabhupada says he actually had no attraction for material enjoyment, right? So seeing the previous verses, it seems very difficult to reconcile that because he actually seems to have nothing but attraction for material enjoyment. And but Prabhupada is taking a few steps back and looking at Maharaj Agnidhar from the perspective of his antecedents and his precedents, like son of Priyavarta, pure devotee of the Lord, doing a service that Brahma had entrusted Priyabhata, which was to expand the family lineage, to rule, create an environment for devotion to flourish. And his further, we'll see that later on in his descendants, many pure devotees, including the famous Bharat Maharaj will appear, including the Lord himself will appear as Rishabh Dev. So by no means an ordinary personality. So Sri Prabhupada presents it that he was a devotee who was basically doing a service, like Arjun was doing a service by being bewildered. He was doing a service by being bewildered to, amongst other things, show the influence even on exalted personalities. Okay, so I'll do one more verse, short verse, and then we'll pause for any discussion. Attracted by the intelligence, learning, youth, beauty, behavior, opulence, and magnanimity of Agnidhar, the king of Jambudvip and the master of all heroes, Purvachitti lived with him for many thousands of years and luxuriously enjoyed both worldly and heavenly happiness. So Prabhupada says that by the grace of Lord Brahma, King Agnidhar and the heavenly girl Purvachitti found their union quite suitable. Thus they enjoyed worldly and heavenly happiness for many thousands of years. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Pad comments that Maharaj Agnidhar, he ruled for 100 million years. And in that duration, he enjoyed with Purvachitti while also being an ideal king and maintaining proper dominion over the kingdom. And all this was possible by the grace of Lord Brahma. And the grace of Lord Brahma was there because of the obedience of initially Priyabhata and now Agnidhar. Okay, so let me pause here and see if there's any discussion.
Prabhu, can you hear us? Prabhu, can you hear us? No, you cannot hear.
Yeah, 1 second. Let me. Now we can hear.
Prabhu, can you hear us?
Yeah. I forgot that it was through the speakers that was coming. Let me change it actually. I'm not sure how this happens. Sometimes when I'm on some conference, it sends it to their. Actually, I'm not even sure how to change. But anyway, let's not waste time.
But your voice is much better in this.
Oh,
we can hear you much better in this. I don't know. That's
Okay.
what I'm seeing, but I don't know how others feel.
Okay.
I have one question, Prabhu, which I don't know. When I was reading this section, when you were reading and hearing this section, it's why such a explicit descriptions about all these things in Srimad Bhagavatam, which is considered to be Amalam Puranam, is understanding that we have to understand this rising above certain platform to go through this. It's challenging our mind, not getting distracted, but still be focused. What is the meaning of this? Any idea?
So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually gives an explanation to these kinds of things, and he says that like one can appreciate knowledge only in the context of nations. So one should study both knowledge and nation side by side, which essentially is there's a verse in Isa Upanishad. I forget the Sanskrit, but essentially it says that one should read both what is knowledge and what is not knowledge in order to become truly knowledgeable. Because from a practical perspective, ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is dangerous. So that's why in the Bhagavatam, we see fall down of great personalities. We see activities that are not congruent to their stature, the cursing by Daksha, and later on, I think this is much later on, not I forget which canto. We see how this feud goes on between Brahaspati and Soma, and Brahaspati he forcibly rapes his brother's wife, and then Soma kidnaps from Brahaspati's wife and has illicit conjugal relationship with her, and Buddha is born. So I remember when I was reading it, I asked almost the same question to Guru Maharaj, that it's a little bewildering how these things are there in the Bhagavatam, supposed to be the spotless Puran. And Maharaj gave a very similar answer, that in one way, it is a cautionary tale, to a note to us that when such great personalities can be influenced, then we need to be even more careful. Second is that it talks about the glories of bhakti, that such great personalities are fallible. Srila Prabhupada would always give the example of Vishwamitra, right, performing such severe austerities. And then he would compare him with Haridas Thakur. Right? And Haridas Thakur was completely unperturbed. So it talks about the potency of bhakti, and also gives us a glimpse of everything that is going on there, which we may know or not fully know. So it kind of lays out the map for us. Go this way, do not go this way, because this is what might happen.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Okay, any other thoughts, comments? Okay, so moving on, we are almost towards the end of the chapter. Maybe I should have waited for the chapter to end, but nevertheless. Verse 19. In the womb of Purvachitti, Maharaj Agnidhar, the best of kings, begot 9 sons, named Nabhi, Kimapurusha, Harivarsha, Ilavrata, Ramyak, Hiranmaya, Kuru, Bhadraswa, and Ketumal. So later on, we'll see that each one of them will get their own kingdom that is actually named after them. That so Nabhi will actually rule a kingdom by the name of Bharat. And Kimapurush will rule a kingdom by the name of Kimapurush, or also known as Kinnar. Then Harivarsha will be ruled by Harivarsha, Ilavrat, and so on. So the kingdoms are actually named after them. Verse 20. Purvachitti gave birth to these 9 sons, one each year. But after they grew up, she left them at home and again approached Lord Brahma to worship him. So this is one of the interesting aspects of Apsaras, that even though they are they're beautiful women and they enjoy the association of man, but they have no particular attraction to family life. We see other cases also between Vishwamitra and Menaka, that they had a daughter Shakuntala. But when Vishwamitra said that I'm leaving you, Menaka said, okay, I'm leaving also. So they left Shakuntala in the forest and went away. And we saw in the 4th canto also how Marisha, and she was also the daughter of an Apsara, and she was abandoned there. So their nature is not so much to nurture. The nature is more to captivate. So Prabhupada says that Purvachitti did not remain permanently with Maharaj Agnidhar. After cooperating in his household affairs, she left Maharaj Agnidhar and all 9 sons and returned to Brahma to worship him. So this also indicates that she was an Apsara in the court of Brahma. So just like there are Apsaras in the court of Indra, like Rambha and Menaka, Purvachitti, she's an Apsara in the court of Brahma. So she went and resumed her position as worshipping Lord Brahma. Because of drinking the breast milk of their mother, the 9 sons of Agnidhar naturally had strong, well-suited bodies. Their father gave them each a kingdom in different parts of Jambudvip. The kingdoms were named according to the names of the sons. Thus the sons of Agnidhar ruled the kingdom they received from their father. So Prabhupada comments on Matuha Anugrahat, by the mercy of their mother, referring to the breast milk of the mother. And this is more of a social commentary. Prabhupada says that in India, it's a common belief that if a baby is fed with his mother's milk for at least 6 months, his body will be very strong. Besides that, it is mentioned herein that all the sons of Agnidhar were endowed with the nature of their mother. Bhagavad Gita 140 also declares Trishu Dustasu Varshanaya Jayate Varna Sankar. When the women are polluted, Varna Sankar, unqualified children, are generated. And when Varna Sankar population increases, the entire world becomes hellish. Therefore, according to Manu Samhita, a woman needs a great deal of protection in order to remain pure and chaste, so that her children can be fully engaged for the benefit of human society. And Prabhupada expands this into a bit of a social commentary that it's a reflection on, and I think at that time the trend had started. Now it was more the trend, the feminism trend, where women were in seeking more and more to be like men. Like that's one of the definition of feminism. So they were not so much vested in taking care of their children. At one point, the trend was also not to breastfeed the children, but rather to feed them with the commercially available powder milk. And there used to be advertisements that would actually say that the mother's milk is not very suitable for the child, much more healthier to take. Of course, they were produced by these companies that produce the powdered milk. Now the trend is again reversing. Now more and more parents are looking for natural nourishment for the child. So here it is said that because the sons of Agnidhar were nourished by the mother, they grew up to be strong and powerful, and they became powerful, qualified leaders of the kingdoms. Okay, verse 22. After Purvachitti's departure, King Agnidhar, his lusty desires not at all satisfied, always thought of her. Therefore, in accordance with the Vedic injunctions, the king after his death was promoted to the same planet as his celestial wife, the planet which is called Pitraloka, in which the Pitas, the forefathers, live in great delight. So this was always the ambition of King Agnidhar. Right? He did not even wanted to go to the heavenly king. He wanted to go to Pitraloka. So if you remember, that's why he wanted to have a wife so that he could have qualified children. And when the children offer oblations, then the forefathers are elevated to Pitraloka, and they remain there until the oblations are being offered. And when that finishes, then they fall down to the earthly planet. And Prabhupada also comments on the fact that because he always thought of his wife, he also obtained her destination. Like Maharaj Agnidhar was always thinking of Pitraloka, where his wife had returned. Therefore, after his death, he achieved the same planet, probably to live with her again. And Prabhupada goes, Yam Yam Vapi Swaran Bhavam, Tajanti Anta Kalevaram. Right? Whatever one thinks at the time of death, one attains that. So we see a similar situation in Mahabharata also between King Pururava and the Apsara named Urvashi. So here we see Agnidhar, he spent hundreds and millions of years enjoying with Purvachiti, but he is still not satisfied. So the late nature of lust is that it can never be satisfied with engaging in the activities that are related to lust, because it's like putting wood in fire. So there was this King Pururava, one of the very earlier ascendants of the Kuruvamshi. And Maharaj and King Pururava had actually become infatuated by Urvashi. And finally he gets Urvashi as his wife, and he lives with her for a long time. He has many children. And then finally she leaves him. So it's a long pastime. She puts a lot of conditions that he should never appear before her without clothes, and lamps should not be stolen. But anyway, all that happens, and he's very much devastated. So then he performs austerity, simply thinking about her, and then he goes to her planet and joins her. Then later on, the great grandson of Maharaj Pururava is Yayati. Right, and Yayati we see also is similarly infatuated with Devyani and Sharmishta, specifically Devyani. But his case was a little different. That after enjoying with her for a long time, then he comes to the realization that the enjoyment is just self-consuming, and then he is able to detach himself. But we see this in the scriptures, replete with great personalities being completely infatuated and performing severe austerities and going to great lengths in order to continue with their enjoyment. Last verse. After the departure of the father, the 9 brothers married the 9 daughters of Meru, named Meru Devi, Pratirupa, Ugratmastri, Lata, Ramya, Shyam, Nari, Bhadra, and Devavati. Okay, so this is the end of the second chapter. Quick summary. This is the chapter that gives the activities of Maharaj Agnidhar. As far as I can remember, this is the only place in the Bhagavatam where Maharaj Agnidhar appears. And it talks about the austerities and the rule of Maharaj Agnidhar, then Agnidhar's infatuation by Purvachiti, his flattery, and finally his marriage to Purvachiti. And then a few verses talk about the family life, the descendants of Agnidhar, and his final destination, which is Pitraloka. Okay, so I'll stop here. And I know I just stopped for questions, but because we ended at the chapter, I'll pause again and see if there is any comments or questions.
Prabhu, just one question about, I'm sure that you're going to talk more about this planetary systems or the Bhumandal and things like that. Here we see the Jambudvip, 9 islands, and how they are given to 9 sons of Agnidhar. And so Earth is one of the island in that. The whole Earth is one of the island. That's the understanding.
It's
and
a khanda. It's one of the khandas in the islands, right? So like Jambudvip is these 9 islands. The southernmost island, southernmost tip is Earth.
Hmm.
But
And
you're right. We'll actually, even in this chapter, we'll talk more about it. And later on, we'll talk in great details.
and Earth is called Ilavati at that time, or is it something else?
It was called Anjan Varsha.
Hmm. Okay.
Anjan Varsha. And then after the descendant of Maharaj Agnidhar, Bharat Maharaj, it started being called Bharat Varsha.
Okay, Prabhu. That's all I have.
Sure.
Hi, Krishna. Just one point of clarification. I heard you mention that in Pitriloka, when the Pita forefathers, they go there, they remain there as long as the shroud or whatever is performed by their descendants or their sons. But if ever that stops, then they fall long back. That's the understanding?
Yes, Prabhu.
Or
That's yeah.
in other words, if it continues, let's say year after year after year, then they remain there.
Theoretically, yes. As long as they're receiving the piety of their descendants, they can remain there. But from a practical perspective, what it seems to indicate that they live there for a long time, and eventually they fall down. If you in the Mahabharata, it actually begins with the Pitras. That the Pitras are that there is this particular sage who has taken this vow of celibacy, and his Pitras are very, very upset at him because they are foreseeing their downfall because there will be no child. So they're very angry at him, and they basically confront him, and and this particular sage is very much inclined to austerities. But finally, the sage lays down many conditions that if I find a woman whose name is the same as mine and this and that, then I will marry her. And eventually he does find one and marry her, and then the Pitras are satisfied. But in that conversation, it is clearly revealed that the Pitras are concerned that if there is no offspring, they will fall down. And Prabhupada mentions the same, that even if there's an offspring and the offspring is not suitable, then the Pitras fall down. In another place, I had heard that that actually Yamraj, he recruits his Yamadutas from the Pitras who are about to fall down, because they develop they developed a lot of angst towards those who don't follow the Vedic principles. Essentially, that's the reason they're falling down. So they develop a lot of anger towards those who do not follow the Vedic injunctions. So they're good candidates for Yamdutas, for Yamraj, and they engage in punishing them and arresting them. So just I heard it in a lecture. I didn't read it anywhere, but kind of relevant.
In other words, just for discussion, those who are outside of the Vedic part, the Vedic culture, then their destination is unknown, or to use a stronger statement, they're doomed. Is it correct? Like in other religious parts that don't even mention, anything to, that we are discussing here. They don't even know, they don't even believe. Then, of course, none of these ceremonies, offerings, are being done, and like that. They don't even know about it. Then what happens? They are just left.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, not only like other religion, even in the so-called followers of Vedic society, they're not being followed accurately there. But for the sake of the discussion, what we need to understand is that the Pitralok is not the only destination. It's one of the destinations that Maharaj Agnidhar was aspiring for. There are the heavenly planets, there are even higher planets, there's the spiritual world. So yes, for Pitraloka, one is dependent on one's progeny or lineage, but one can get elevated to one of the heavenly planets on the strength of their own merits. Right? They don't have to depend on anybody. One can get elevated to even higher planets on the strength of their asceticism. So Pitralok is called essentially, it's not an heavenly planet, it's called a lower heavenly planet. So it's above the earth, but below the heaven. It's in one of those middle areas.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
But we also know, Prabhu, when we perform devotional service, even if you're not offering pinda, Prabhupada says the forefathers are delivered. So what does that mean?
So that's a separate path. That's the potency of bhakti. And so through the process of karma kand, one can elevate one's ancestors to the heavenly kingdom or keep them in Pitralok. And this is through the process of karma kand. Through the process of bhakti, it's different. Just like bhakti delivers us without any dependence on any of the rituals in karma kand, it also delivers our forefathers and our descendants. And in fact, one of the recommendations is that if devotees are inclined to perform Shraddh, then they should offer Vishnu Prasad, so that when the ancestors accept Prasadam, then their spiritual journey also commences. So it's a different path. Okay, so if there are no more questions, let's start with the third chapter. So the third chapter is titled Rishabdev's appearance in the wife of Meru Devi, the wife of King. I'm sorry, Rishabdev's appearance in the womb of Meru Devi, the wife of King Nabi. So this is also a short chapter. It has 20 verses. But unlike the previous chapter, it's a fairly philosophical chapter. Previous chapter was more of a graphic description of the beauty of a woman. Here, the focus of the chapter is describing the beauty of Lord Vishnu. So here we can get a sense of what Bhagavatam also primarily wants us to get attracted to. Okay, so most of this chapter is in prose, so I'll just read the translation. 531. Sukadev Goswami continued to speak. Maharaj Nabi, the son of Agnidhar, wished to have sons, and therefore he attentively began to offer prayers and worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, the master and enjoyer of all sacrifices. Maharaj Nabi's wife, Meru Devi, who had not given birth to any children at that time, also worshipped Lord Vishnu her son, with her husband. Sorry. So the chapters begin on a very similar note. Right? We see that Maharaj Agnidhar, he desired to have a son, and Maharaj Nabi desired to have a son. But then the difference comes that in order to have a son, Maharaj Agnidhar was worshipping Lord Brahma, whereas Maharaj Nabi, he is worshipping the personality of Godhead. And we will see that different consciousness, different realizations, different results come. So just to kind of set a little bit of context over here, in the earlier part of, in the earlier first chapter of the 5th canto, we see that Maharaj Priyavrta is been given the rule of Bhumandal. Right? So the whole universe is divided into 14 planetary systems, and Bhumandal is the middle planetary system that is right on top of the surface of the Garbhodakshaya ocean. Right? So the whole Bhumandal, which essentially is the circle right across the universe, like hundreds and millions of planets, the whole Bhumandal is ruled by Maharaj Priyavrta. And then we see that how he divides it into 7 dvipas. Right? It's that pastime of him taking a chariot and 7 chariots and traversing along the edges of the Bhumandal. So he divides it into 7 dvipas, because where the tracks of the wheels of the chariot was, they became oceans, and dvipas are essentially pieces of land that are surrounded by ocean. So that's why there are 7 dvipas. Now, Priyavrta Maharaj, he had several sons, but he gave the rule of this different dvipas to different of his sons. And the innermost dvipa, so if you can think of a circle with 7 concentric, the innermost concentric circle is basically given to his son Agnidhar. So the innermost island is Jambudvipa, and Jambudvipa has been given to Maharaj Agnidhar. And then the dvipas outside, there is a Plaksha Dvipa and the Shalmali Dvipa, and they are given to other sons of Priyavrta like Idmajev, Yagyabahu, Hiranyaret. So they take control of the different dvipas. The innermost dvipa, which is Jambu Dvip, has been given to Maharaj Agnidhar. Then Maharaj Agnidhar marries Purvachitti, and from her he has 9 sons. So he divides Jambudvipa into 9 varshas, and these are essentially, if you look at a circle and you draw lines across the circle parallel to the diameter, so he divides it into 9 varshas, and each of these varsha is named after his son. So we said, how Nabhi and Kimapurusha and Hari Varsha and Kuru Varsha and Hiranmaya Varsha. So these are the 9 varshas. So the eldest son of Agnidhar is King Nabhi, and Nabhi is given the rule of Bharatvarsha. Bharatvarsha was as I was saying earlier, known as Ajnab Varsha, and later on got the name Bharatvarsha because of King Bharat. So Bharatvarsha is further divided into 9 khandas or parts, and they have different names like Aindra Khanda and Kaserumat and Tamravan and Ghabistaman. So these are the 9 khandas. The 9th khanda, which is known as the Varun khanda, is 1000 yojanas from north to south, and it is bordering the ocean. So as per the Markandeya Puran, the 9th island is surrounded by water measuring 1000 yojanas from north to south, is also called the Bharatvarsha, and this is the Earth planet where we live. Right, so we get a sense of where we are. Now, it is also mentioned in Markandeya Puran that it is impossible to travel from one khanda to another. Impossible for ordinary mortals. I mean, obviously, the exalted personalities and the elevated personalities, they do travel. But it's mentioned that the residents of one khanda cannot visit or see the residents of another khanda. And of all these kingdoms that are there, only the Bharatvarsha. So the reason there's a little confusion because the name Bharat is used a little bit liberally. Sometimes Bhumandal is also known as Bharatvarsha. Sometimes Jambudweep is called Bharatvarsha, and sometimes the Ajnab Varsha is called Bharatvarsha. But actually, Bharatvarsha, what we refer to, is the 9th khanda in Ajnab Varsha, and this is the only place where the cycle of karma is active. All other places are known as Homya Swarga. So there people enjoy long life, 10,000 years. They have no disease, no old age. The women have 1 sons towards the end of their life. And there's no cycle of karma. They're essentially exhausting their piety over there. Bharatvarsha is the place where one can build piety, where one can also perform devotional service. And there is, of course, a lot of glorification of Bharatvarsha by the Devas also, because along with all the contaminations, the area is also favored by the Lord, and with little effort one can acquire perfection. So later on, when we'll see in the prayers of glorification, how Bharatvarsha has been glorified by the demigods, they aspire to take birth over here. We saw the same thing towards the end of the 3rd canto, in Lord Kapila Dev's pastime. So anywhere over here, we are now going to be talking about the eldest son of Maharaj Agnidhar. So Priyavarta's eldest son was Agnidhar, and Agnidhar's eldest son is Maharaj Nabhi. Okay. Verse 2. In the performance of a sacrifice, there are 7 transcendental means to obtain the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 1, by sacrificing valuable things or eatables. 2, by acting in terms of place. 3, by acting in terms of time. 4, by offering hymns. 5, by going through the priest. 6, by offering gifts to the priest. And 7, by observing the regulative principles. However, one cannot always obtain the Supreme Lord through this paraphernalia. Nonetheless, the Lord is affectionate to his devotee. Therefore, when Maharaj Nabhi, who was a devotee, worshipped and offered praise to the Lord with great faith and devotion, and with a pure and contaminated mind, superficially performing some yajna in the line of pravargya. The kind Supreme Personality of Godhead, due to his affection for his devotees, appeared before King Nabhi in his unconquerable and captivating form with 4 hands. In this way, to fulfill the desires of his devotee, the Supreme Personality of Godhead manifested himself in his beautiful body before his devotee. This body pleases the mind and eyes of the devotees. This verse is essentially a summary of the chapter, and we will see later on that when the priests who perform the yajna pray to Lord Vishnu, they will expand on what has been summarized in this verse. So what does this verse says? That there are rules and regulations to perform sacrifice. Right? Essentially, they give 7 processes. They give dravya, which is ingredients, desha, which is acting in terms of place, kal, acting in terms of time, mantra. Then ritvik, which is the priest, dakshina, giving gifts to the priest, and vidhan, which is regulative principles. So these are there in order to perform sacrifice as per the scriptures. But then Sukdev Goswami says, however, one cannot always obtain the Supreme Lord through this paraphernalia. Nonetheless, the Lord appears because of his affection. So we see that in the sacrifice of Maharaj Nabhi, the Lord appears not because of the sacrifice, but because of his affection for the priests and the king. Even though out of humility, the priests will consider themselves to be unqualified. But this is essentially what the chapter is going to teach us, that the Lord is not that much attracted by the performance of rituals, even if they're performed perfectly. But he is more attracted by the simplicity, the love, and the attraction of his devotee. So when the Lord appears, he is described as supratikaha, possessing a very beautiful form, as hridayangam. Hridayangam means captivating form, captivates the heart. Then aparajitam, that one who cannot be conquered by anyone. So this form of the Lord is specifically described because even though he is aparajitam, he also gets conquered by the love of his devotee. Then his mana nayan ananda, that mana and nayan, that is pleasing to the mind and the eyes. And his abhiraman. Abhiraman means one who is very beautiful. So one may wonder that if the Lord was just attracted by the bhakti in Nabhi, then what was the need for him to perform this elaborate sacrifice? And 3 reasons are mentioned. One is that, and very similar to reasons given by Krishna in the 3rd and 5th chapter of the Gita, that to set an example for others, that the king is essentially the leader of the citizens. So when they see the king not performing his prescribed duties, they will follow and they will criticize. So to set an example. Secondly, as a matter of duty, because the king may be a pure devotee, but the citizens may not be. So for their benefit, for their purification, one needs to do this. Now, of course, if the Lord is favoring the king and the king wants the citizens to be favored, the Lord will favor the citizens also. But the purification of the citizens happens through this process of, or for those who are not advanced, it happens through this to this process. So as a matter of duty to their citizens, the kings perform. And third is for their own purification also. Because whether a yajna is a karmakand yajna or a gyan or a bhakti, it depends on the consciousness of the performer. And later on, we'll see when Maharaj Bharat is performing the sacrifice. So when he's offering the oblations to the demigods, then he's meditating upon them as if they are limbs of the Supreme Personality. So externally, he's offering meditation to the devas, but internally, he's only seeing them in connection with the Supreme Lord. Right. So one can use this also as an opportunity for devotional service. So Prabhupada says that one can understand and see the personality of Godhead through the process of devotional service and not in any other way. Maharaj Nabi performed prescribed duties and sacrifice. It should still be considered that the king appeared before him not due to his sacrifice, but because of his devotional service. It is for this reason that the Lord appeared to agree before him in his beautiful bodily feature. We see a similar example of this confluence of Karam Kand and Bhakti in the case of Prithu Maharaj. Right. So remember in the 4th canto, Prithu Maharaj, he takes this vow to perform 100 Ashwamedha Yajnas. And he was performing it for the sake of duty. Because having performed the 100 Ashwamedha Yajnas, the kingdom becomes secure and prosperous, the citizens become happy. So as a service to them, he had taken this sankalp to perform the 100 Ashwamedha Yajnas. So it was in the category of Karmakand. So he performed 99 Yajnas, and then Indra came and started creating all the disturbances. And for a while, Prithu Maharaj is upset at him, and then he says, okay, so be it. Like Brahma says, let it go. And Prithu Maharaj says, let it go. So the acharyas say that why did Prithu Maharaj let it go? He had performed 99 yajnas. He was only one shot. It's not that he had performed 2 yajnas and he was 98 shot. He was only one shot. And he was powerful enough to defeat Indra. But then also he says, let it go. Because Karmakand was never his primary motivation. His motivation was to please the Lord and to please the devotees of the Lord. So when Brahma instructed him to give it up, Prithu Maharaj says to please the devotees of the Lord, it is much more important than any Karmakand sankalpa I may have made. Even though breaking a sankalp in Karmakand is considered to be very sinful. That once so at the beginning of any sacrifice, the priest will tie this sankalp thread around your wrist. They will chant the sankalp mantra. That means now you're bound to the successful performance, and that's how you can get the result. To break that is considered to be sinful, and you can get the opposite reaction. So Prithu Maharaj was well aware of it, but he gave it up because he was never attracted to it. His main attraction was to please the Lord and his representatives. So the acharyas also say that actually Prithu Maharaj performed 100 yajnas. The 99 yajnas were that of Ashwamedha yajnas. The 100 sacrifice that he performed was that of his ego. And so we know that after that the Lord appears. This is the Lord appeared not because of the 99 sacrifices he did, but because of the 100 sacrifice that he did, in which he gave up his own ego of being attached to that I am the doer and I have to be successful. So here there is in this pastime of Nabi, there is no disturbance in the yajna, but the mood is still the same. That the yajna is more like a means to an end, but the real purpose is to express the devotion to the Lord. Okay. So I think I've gone a little bit over time. My apologies for that. I'll pause here and see if there's any concluding thoughts. If not, we'll stop over here. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anant Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Gaur Prem. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you.